going to be successful to basically point the finger at Susan Berman and say, oh, she made up stories, can't believe anything she said, and Durst didn't kill her?
No, I think the time is up for Robert Durst. And I am a big fan, and I've said it on this program many times. I'm a big fan of Dick DeGuerin. I think what he did in Galveston was brilliant, but you're not in Galveston, Texas anymore. And after the documentary came out and Robert Durst's lies caught up to them, which they eventually do, then I think Dick DeGuerin had an uphill battle, which he knew, which is why he instructed his client to finally come clean about authoring the letter that was sent to the police department, basically spelling out the fact that there was a cadaver dead body in Susan Berman's house. And so Dick DeGuerin had nowhere to go as a defense attorney with a client who clearly had done too much talking. And I just don't think the jury can get past that. And finally, I think that the testimony of Robert Durst himself could not save the day as it did in Galveston in the early 2000s. In fact, it was his undoing. I was surprised to hear and to see that Robert Durst admitted to the jury upon fabulous cross-examination by the prosecutor. Durst admitted that even if he had killed Susan Berman, he would never tell this jury that. And I don't see how you get past that fact.
Well, the other thing I just struggle with, and it's not the amount of time the jury has listened to evidence. And I think strategically the fact, and this is how it works, but the fact that Durst goes last, and that's the last thing they hear from him as the defendant, and Lewin was successful in getting him to admit that, yes, he's lied when he's testified, that's the last thing the jury's going to hear. And so how hard do you think it is for a jury to remember, and they'll have access to the evidence, but this many days of trial and listening since May of this year to evidence that they then have to decide which facts are true and then apply the law to those facts?
It's very difficult. When you have a hearing that lasts even over a week, some of the information that was on the first 10 days of the case is lost by day 50 or day 60. But what is really packing a punch, and was an interesting choice by the defense, is to have the defendant's own words be the very last thing ringing in the jurors' ears right before closing statements. And the prosecution did a great job, in my opinion. And of course, they had lessons to learn from Galveston, where I think that the prosecution was stunned by some of the strategy deployed by Dick DeGuerin's legal team and Robert Durst himself. And I think this time the California prosecutors were waiting, chomping at the bit to get that cross-examination in, and really pinning him down as a liar in the eyes of the jury. What I don't think he should have done as a defendant, but I don't think he could have helped, is to have admitted that he will not tell the truth if it would hurt him about a murder, the very issue that the jurors are there to decide.
And this, to me, goes to the point that you can't control your witness. As trial attorneys,
Right.
we prepare, we know what the law is, we know what the facts in the case are, what we expect as evidence through the discovery process. We do all of this hard work. But bottom line, anytime you have a witness, no matter how much you've prepared them, you don't know what to expect. And I felt like watching Durst became a little bit of a runaway train, meaning he answered the questions, and that's what the answer is. There's nothing you could do as a defense attorney to stop once they've started answering questions as a defendant.
Well, that's true, Judge. I agree with you, but you still are getting paid to woodshed properly your client, to prepare them for that advocacy moment where they're asked the question that has been asked for decades since the Galveston murder. And so I think that you're right. You can't control Robert Durst, but look at what it got him. His testimony, his congeniality, his brash responses to prosecution questions got him away with murder the first time. So why wouldn't he do it and exaggerate it a little bit more now? I think we saw that even in the Jinx, if you watched that documentary, which I did, especially after I'd been talking about this many times on Court TV, it was fascinating to see that even Dick DeGuerin's attorney's office and their other attorneys had advised Robert Durst to not participate in this, and they couldn't control him in that sense either. So I think this is a runaway client. I think he's going to do what he wants to do because it's worked for him in the past. Most of the time, people, especially defendants, don't do things that don't work. And so if it's worked before, he's been rewarded by behaving that way, then we can fully expect him to behave that way again. And I think that's why the prosecution had such an effective cross-examination. They were prepared for the witness he would be, given his behavior in the documentary and his testimony from the original Galveston trial.